Proposition 32. This raises a state minimum wage to $18 per hour for all workers by 2026. Now, unlike the other propositions that we've talked about, how did Proposition 32 get on the ballot? It was one of those citizens' initiatives. It was initiated outside the California legislature. It wasn't something that was voted on in the state assembly and Senate. This was introduced via the initiative process that I described in the introduction. An individual and organization gets enough signatures. Those signatures are validated by the Secretary of State of California, and if they get enough valid signatures, it's on the ballot. That's how this happened. So, with that in mind, what would be the policy changes if Proposition 32 passed? So first, in 2025, the minimum wage for employers who have 26 or more employees would go up to $18 an hour. It would go up to $17 an hour for employers with fewer than 25 employees. But then by 2026, the minimum wage would be $18 per hour for all employers, regardless of the number of employees that they have. What it would do also, if it passed, is that right now the minimum wage is adjusted each year to account for inflation, right? Proposition 32 would pause that annual inflation-based adjustment until 2027. After that, the state would resume adjusting the minimum wage annually based on inflation rates following the current rules right now. And currently, adjustments are limited to 3.5% annually. In terms of the impact on local and industry-specific minimum wages, Proposition 32 doesn't affect local or industry-specific minimum wages that are already in place, such as those for fast food workers, where some cities have actually set higher minimum wages than what's at the state level. The minimum wage increase is likely to increase wages for workers earning above minimum wage. So even though it would not be required by this proposition, employers will frequently raise wages for non-minimum wage employees based on their experience or skill level or job responsibilities. That way, higher paid workers feel fairly compensated in relation to those making the minimum wage. And so when you raise the minimum wage, generally other employees will get wage increases as well. In terms of the potential impact on the economy and employment effects for businesses, and particularly in those sectors like retail and food services, would face increased costs due to higher wages. Their labor costs would go up. And this may affect consumers because this may lead to increased prices for consumers as businesses try and pass on those added costs. In terms of the impact on jobs, the proposition could have mixed effects on employment. Some businesses might reduce hiring and cut hours to offset the higher wage costs, while others might experience higher productivity and employer retention because employees are happier because they're making more money. According to the legislative analysts, the impact on overall employment is projected to be relatively small, less than a 1% change in employment as a result of the passage of this proposition. Well, the fiscal impacts on both the state and local level are as follows. First, the state and many local governments would face higher costs to pay their employees at the new minimum wage levels. This includes state employees as well as workers for contractors who provide services to the government and government agencies. The overall increase in costs in 2025 would depend on the number of employees currently earning less than $18 an hour. In 2026, the number of employees wouldn't matter since all employers would be required to pay $18 an hour. In terms of cost for public programs that employ low-wage workers healthcare, like the healthcare industry and education, unfortunately, may also see increased operational costs, leading to potential budget adjustments both at the state and local levels. Now, there may be savings that fall from this as well, right? As wages increase, many low-wage workers would earn enough to no longer qualify for public assistance programs such as Medi-Cal or food stamps, and this could reduce government spending on these programs, potentially saving hundreds of millions of dollars annually. However, these savings might be offset by higher wages the government would have to pay. So they would save some in terms of public services, but paid more in terms of wages for people. In terms of the impact on tax revenue, some businesses might experience reduced profits due to higher wages, right? And this could lead to lower business tax revenue for the state because the businesses would be making less, therefore they pay less in taxes. On the other hand, higher wages could lead to higher personal income tax revenues from workers who benefit from the wage increase. So it's kind of mixed. The overall impact on state and local government costs could increase or decrease depending on how businesses and employment levels are affected. Some of these things are very hard for the legislative analysts to predict. They project that the net fiscal impact likely would not exceed the high hundreds of millions of dollars annually, accounting for both increased payroll costs and savings from reduced public assistance. So what are the arguments in favor and against Proposition 32? Well, proponents argue that increasing the minimum wage to $18 an hour is necessary to help workers keep up with the rising cost of living. Right? They also argue that increasing the minimum wage will lift many workers out of poverty such that they won't need public assistance. It'll also improve overall living conditions in California's low-income population, especially workers in sectors like retail, hospitality, and healthcare. The arguments against Proposition 32 are as follows. Raising the minimum wage will impose significant financial burdens on businesses, especially small and medium-sized enterprises. Higher labor costs could lead businesses to increasing prices for consumers, which would contribute to inflation. Also, the proposition could result in fewer job opportunities, as some businesses might respond to increased labor costs by reducing their workforce, reducing hours, and then automating some jobs. In terms of the recommendations of the people that I've mentioned in previous videos, it falls very much along party lines or ideological lines. The California Republican Party, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Los Angeles Daily News all recommend no vote. The California Democratic Party, the Labor Federation, and the Los Angeles Times recommend a yes vote. And so what does a yes or no vote mean on Proposition 32? A yes vote supports increasing the minimum wage to $18 an hour by 2026 for all employees, and then thereafter adjusting the rate annually by no more than 3.5%. But it would change in 2025 differently, and then everybody would have to pay 18 at 2026. A no vote opposes this ballot initiative, thereby maintaining the existing law, which was designed to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour for all employees by January 2023, and then increasing it annually. So it would keep the law intact as it is right now. And I hope this was helpful.